All right, so Lauren, we have everybody on board right now. At this point in time, I'd like to call to order the Pima County Board of Adjustment #1 meeting of January 3rd, 2022. I have on my desk a small American flag, and if you would follow along with me and do a Pledge of Allegiance at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
republic
for
which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Would the Secretary read the roll call, please?
Mr. Green?
Present.
Ms. Maslin?
Present.
Ms. Ballantyne?
Present.
Mr. Call?
Present.
And Chair Wildblood?
Present.
Mr. Chair, let the record show that all the board members are present today.
Very good. Thank you. I'd like to, at this point in time, just do a brief little welcoming to Vicki Ballantyne as a new member of the board. And I would also like to put into the record to thank Mr. Carroll for his long-time service on the board. I think he was on the board for almost 6 years, and he did an excellent job with his legal background and his obvious, fair, and appropriate aspects that he came across with. All right, with that being said, would the Secretary read the first description?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, this is Bruce Call, I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. We get off on a smiling top note here.
Thank you.
That's good, Bruce. Thank you. I understand the Secretary, we have to vote on this continuance on this P21VA00020 Miller. Is that correct?
That is correct. They requested to continue their case until the February 7th, 2022 meeting.
Very good. Can I hear a motion to approve a continuance on this case?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Green?
Approve.
Ms. Maslin?
Approve.
Ms. Ballantyne?
Approve.
Mr. Call?
Approved to continue.
Chair Wildblood?
Approved continuance. All right, so we have a withdrawal request from P21VA00023. We do not have to vote on that. We just can accept that. Is that correct, Secretary?
That is correct.
All right. Right. May we have a reading of the next case, please?
Yes. P21VA00025 Cleaver, North Ethan Allen Place. Michael Cleaver, on property located at 7561 North Ethan Allen Place in the CR3 Single Residence Zone, requests the following variances: to increase the permitted lot coverage for accessory buildings from the allowable 1,129 square feet to 1,700 square feet. Section 18.25.040A of the Pima County Zoning Code allows a maximum 5% permitted coverage, and then also to increase the maximum height for an accessory building to 18 feet. Section 18.25040B of the Pima County Zoning Code allows a 12-foot maximum height. If it's all right, Mr. Chair, I can proceed with a staff report.
And Lauren, just before, this is Tom Drzgowski from Pima County. Just before, everyone needs to look down and mute their phone. We're getting a lot of background noise and it becomes distracting. So please take a moment to look at your phone and make sure it's muted. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Lauren, you may proceed with the staff report, please.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so property 7561 North Ethan Allen Place is located north of North Camino de la Tierra and west of North Shannon Road. I'm just going to summarize my staff report. Its surrounding land uses are generally CR3, which are single residence homes, and SR Suburban Ranch, which is the Cañada del Oro Wash and the River Park. As of today, staff has received no comments from the public, and there have also not been any Board of Adjustment cases on this property. Transportation and Flood Control Report. Overall, the Department of Transportation has no objection to this variance request and recommends approval, and the Flood Control District has no objection to this variance request. Concerning background, the subject property is 22,587 square feet. It's located in northeast Pima County in Heritage Hills 2 subdivision, which was recorded in 1978. It's west of North Shannon Road, and across the street is the Pima County Community College Northwest campus. Currently on the site, there's a 1,473 square foot single-family detached residential dwelling and also a 100 square foot shed on the property. This request cannot be approved by an MSR or modification of setback requirements because the height limit increases can only be approved by variances. So the owner is now proposing to build a 1,600 square foot detached garage on the northern portion behind the existing home. And they want to do this to build a flat-roofed garage to allow for a car lift to work on personal project cars. So, ending with recommendation, staff has no objection to this variance request. The property owner has submitted a form with signatures of adjacent property owners supporting this request. Even though the hardship has been self-created by the owner, there is a lack of protest, and it appears that granting the variances will not cause injury to or adversely affect the rights of surrounding property owners and residents per standard number 7, and according to standard number 5, the variances also do not allow a use which is not permitted in the zone by the code, as auto home repair is a permitted accessory use. And lastly, if the Board of Adjustment is inclined to approve the request, staff recommends to include the condition that home auto repair is limited only to vehicles owned by the resident of the home, and that the applicant would have to comply with the requirements for home auto repair in Section 1808020P of the Pima County Zoning Code. And that concludes the staff report.
Are there any questions by the board members of staff?
This is Bruce Call. I have a question. Tom, if this building were connected to the existing building, it would be, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, Mr. Call, if this was attached to the house, we'd go by the main building height limits, which would be higher, yes.
So in other words, if this were just, even if it were just attached some way with a covered walkway or anything like that, it would still constitute an attachment. So what we're saying is that the owner is proposing to increase the value of the real estate on the property. It's not something that is going to be deterioration of anything that would impact the neighbors, and so it theoretically could be accomplished. And the only thing that really is the difference is some type of attachment. Is that valid?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Call, it actually has to be physically attached wall to wall, or the wall of the garage would need to be within three feet. But generally, I agree with kind of what you're saying, and I think the way we look at it, and probably the way Lauren looked at it, is that we have support from neighbors, and for him to move it within 3 feet of the house, doesn't really provide any other benefit to neighbors when they're not in opposition. So I think all of that goes into our recommendation on a case like this.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom.
Are there any other questions by the board of staff? That being said, no other questions of staff. The applicant is present, is he not?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Would you be sworn in and state your case, please?
Can you just provide your name and address, please?
First name Michael, last name Kuever, Kuever, and my address is 7561 North Ethan Allen Place, Tucson, Arizona, 85741.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Michael, if you would you state your case, please?
Sure. I'm a car enthusiast, and I've been working on them since I was about 16, and my father and I do work on a very specific kind of car from the 80s, the year I was born, actually, a Toyota Supras. We've been a huge fan of these cars for years, and I kind of buy them periodically and fix them up and drive them and really just love the cars. And the only issue is that because they're older, they require quite a bit of maintenance. They're not the most reliable cars, so while I do have a garage in the front, it doesn't really provide the space to put a two-post lift or really any kind of lift. The garage height is only about 8 feet, so it'd make the process of doing the work on these cars quite a bit easier if I could put them in a an insulated garage that I could put on a two-post lift and be able to do the work back there in the backyard. So the idea behind the shop, I was going to build something that matched the aesthetic of the rest of the neighborhood. All these houses in our neighborhood are built out of slump block, and so my plan was to try to build one pretty much identical to the rest of the houses, so it doesn't really stick out like a sore thumb. It's tucked away pretty far from the road, from the house. There's no neighbors on two sides. One of the sides has 8 or 9 foot wall that blocks most of the view and noise from our backyard, thanks to Pima County and putting it in when they built the community college right here. So when we build the shop, it's going to be pretty much invisible from the street, and only 2 neighbors will be able to really see it unless you're really looking for it. And you can't really see it from the front of the house either. So I figured if I kind of tucked it away and hid it back in the back of the lot where it backs up to the CDO wash, it would kind of stop being any kind of eyesore for anybody.
Okay.
I hope that answers most of you guys' questions.
Do any of the board members have questions of the applicant? That being said, no questions. I do, as chairman, I have one question for you.
Sure.
And
yeah.
Your lot is particularly unique, especially in that neighborhood. Yeah. One of the questions I've had was the height, which was 18 feet. I understand, because I was a car buff myself, that you need some height. Can you lower that height at all?
Yeah, so the 18 feet was the recommendation from my engineer. We probably won't have to actually build it that high. It was mostly a safety deal, coming into the variance proposal, making sure that, at the worst case scenario, if we do have to build it 18 feet, that it was going to get approved and wouldn't be an issue. But his concern was when you build a building that spans 40 feet by 40 feet, that the trusses for the roof had to be 4 feet high. So in order to fit a 13-foot, which is on average, the two-post lift is 13 feet tall, so the ceiling height inside would be 14 feet, and then from the ceiling to the top of the building. But that was the very first design we came up with for the roof. And there's, a few different designs. I just wanted to make sure, if we really needed to do it that way, that we had the space.
So that would be a maximum of 18 feet.
Correct.
Are there any other questions by the board members of the applicant? Being none, I would ask, is there anybody in the background that is willing to speak for the variance? That being said, there are none. Are there any people in the background to speak against the variance? All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this point in time.
I move to close the public hearing.
I have a second.
I'll second. It's Kelly.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Right, the public hearing is now closed. Do the board members have any discussion that you would like to make on this? Mr. Call?
Just a couple of general observations and comments. Since this is a CR3 zone and in areas where there are CR3 zones, and he's got a little over a half-acre lot, sounds like that it is density is not an issue. It's considerably less than what could be on a CR3 zone, and so I don't object to that. I appreciate your comment about the height, and as he was outlining a 40-foot span with a 4-foot truss, that to me sounds like that's about right. And maybe with a little bit of trickery, they can get a 3.5-foot truss. But I agree with the notion that in order to have it functional, probably does need to have 14 feet inside clear. So that said, based on what it is that I've heard about it, sounds to me like it is a justified cause, and I would be in support of a motion in accordance with the conditions outlined by the staff.
Is there any other comment by board members? Mr. Green, do you have any comment?
Yes, I think what convinced me for positive consideration here was that the two immediate neighbors had no objection, because to the extent that there was interference with any views or other appearances, they would be the ones most impacted, and they signed saying that they had no objection. So it doesn't seem that there's anything that's inappropriate here.
I would comment that the applicant did a wonderful job of going to a number of his neighbors and asking what their comments were, and having their comments down on a piece of paper and their signatures that they have no complaint about this speaks very well for it. Ms. Maslin, do you have any comments?
I do not. I think it was a very thorough application. It was very well done.
Very good. Ms. Ballantyne, you're brand new here, so welcome. Do you have any comments about this?
Well, thank you. Obviously, I'm in learning mode, but my read was to support the staff recommendation.
Very good. If there's no further comments, I would ask for a motion to approve.
I have one quick question, Chairman, and that is, I recall in the presentation, the owner said he was going to utilize materials, methods, and appearance that would be compatible with the existing structure and neighbors. He was talking about slump block or equal. And so is that I believe that should be one of the criteria in the approval. I really like that he's already saying that's what's going to be. I think we had to hold him to it.
That if you would make the motion, that would be fine. But I would also, one of the concerns that I have is that if he sells this house in the future, the way it's set up right now is that it has his cars or his hobby only that would be operating in this facility. I would hate to see in the future, if he were to sell this house, that somebody buys the property to use that as a ongoing work site for other things.
For a more commercial application?
Yes, that's correct. That would be the only comment that I would have at this point in time. I had some concern about sewage or drainage with oils possibly coming out of this, but I've been informed by staff that that's not a problem with this.
And so, Mr. Chair, this is Tom Trzaskowski. I'll just provide one comment. You know, we get these things a lot through permitting processes and everything else where there's, you know, things approved for specific uses and then people misuse them. That really falls under our code enforcement process. And so this would be similar to someone building a guest house for a family, then selling the property and someone else rents out the guest house, which is not allowed. And so we have our whole enforcement process that would deal with any type of issues with running a business at a later date. So I hope that helps. You know, we have a large group of staff that work on things like that.
Would there be a covenant?
Mr. Chair, board members, not necessarily a covenant, but there's nothing wrong with adding a condition for personal use to it, but our code dictates what you can and can't do out of a residence.
All right, at this point in time, can I hear a motion to approve or deny this variance?
Okay, this is Bruce Call. I move that this case, and I'll let Tom identify specifically the proper case number, this case be approved with the conditions identified and with the requirement that construction type, methods, and materials be consistent with what's in the neighborhood.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Call for a roll call vote to approve Mr. Call's recommendation.
Mr. Green?
Approve.
Ms. Maslin?
Approve.
Ms. Ballantyne?
Approve.
Mr. Call?
Approve.
Chair Wildblood?
Approve. So it's been moved and approved with the conditions as specified. Lauren, would you like to reread that for us?
So case P21VA00025 was approved with a condition, with the staff conditions in addition to the condition that the construction type, method, and materials be consistent with the neighborhood.
Very good. Thank you. There's no further cases at this point in time, but we have a little housekeeping to do, and that is that we have to elect a vice chair. So at this point in time, can I have a motion of somebody to nominate somebody?
This is Bruce Call. I move that we have Mr. Green be the vice chair.
It's been moved. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that. It's Kelly.
Kelly, very good. Thank you. All right, it has been moved and approved, or moved and seconded, that Mr. Green will be the vice chair of Board of Adjustment number 1. And I'd like to have a roll call vote on that, please.
Before the vote, Mr. Chairman, it would be, I believe that it would be appropriate to determine if Mr. Green would be willing to accept such a nomination, and additionally for him to understand a little bit about what it means.
That's a good point, Bruce. Thank you. Mr. Green, would you like to comment on that?
I am honored and surprised, but I have a lesson to learn from you, Mr. Chair, on how things work, and would very much appreciate a little bit of background on the roles of that office.
Well, I would be more than happy to take my expertise and Mr. Call's expertise and give you a little background on it. So it's a real high-paying job. I know that Tom will tell you that, so pays the same. Anyway, I assume that means that you are willing to accept this nomination.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Mr. Green?
Abstain.
Miss Maslin?
Wait. Mr. Green, if you're abstaining, that suggests that you don't necessarily accept this nomination. So I would encourage you to say yes, that you accept the nomination. And let me expand a little bit. It basically means that when Mr. Wildblood is not available, that you would run the meeting just as Mr. Wildblood has set by example. But if you abstain, that kind of says to the rest of the board that you aren't so sure if you really want this job or not. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just suggesting that it would be a good approach for you to say yes, you approve of this nomination and you approve of this vote.
I'm happy to do that. Other organizations have different styles for voting, for approving a motion about yourself, but I am happy to therefore approve.
Okay, thank you. That helps me feel better too, because now I know that we've got a man on board who's glad to do the job, and he'll do a great job based on the information you have. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you can vote for yourself. Continue the roll call, please.
Miss Maslin?
Approve.
Miss Ballantyne?
Approve.
Mr. Call?
Approve.
Chair Wildblood?
Approve. So it's been moved, seconded, and approved that Mr. Green will be the vice chair of Pima County Board of Adjustment, District 1. Is there any other discussion at this point in time from board members or staff?
No, I just look forward to 2022 being better than 2021.
Agreed.
Here.
And that said, I move to adjourn.
One more point, Mr. Call, as there is one case on the docket for next month. Is that correct, Lauren?
Yes, the one that was continued, and then we actually have an additional case about a carport.
Okay, so it's a possibility of two.
Yes.
Two. Okay. So the next meeting would be
February 7th.
February 7th. Okay. With that being said, can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I reinitiate my motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, staff, for your good work, and Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.